Hey guys, this is Chodaros. Today's bracelet is the Melody design, and this was created by MsLoom. So this is just off of one loom. In order to get a full wrap, it's about a loom and a half, and that's the length that I'm going to make today. It's done on a 5-pin bar setup, and it is highly suggested to use a non-twisting band. I don't want to say use a limited edition Rainbow Loom band because I know so many people have such a hard time getting them, but if you have them, that would be a good start because they don't twist. But because the center part, the way it's loomed, there is a lot of twisting of the band, and so just to save you some time, effort, that was the suggestion made by MsLoom. Let's see here. There is two ways that you can do the border. You can do a plain border like this, or you can do a beaded border. If you choose to do a beaded border, then we need to create a single chain, excuse me, and then actually add this onto the loom as the border. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me see here. Trying to see if there are any other things I can think to tell you. I think no. I think that's it for now. I think the back looks exactly like the front. If I were to choose a side of the bracelet, I would choose that the front is laying towards your looming surface. So if you were to use a one-sided bead or something. So this is your pin bar setup. First, second, at one height, go down one peg, and there's your third, and go back up, and you'll have your last two pin bars. Okay? So the colors that I'm going to use are this limited edition, I want to call it a, I don't know what I want to call it. I forget what the name of it is, but it looks like a brown rust kind of a color. When I first made this chain, because I do want to put a beaded border on mine, I put the beads on the bands as I normally do, which is putting the bead in the center of the band, but we want that bead to be visible on the outside of the loom like this, and typically if we put this on the loom, our bead would be in the center. So I just want to show you quickly, if you do choose to do a beaded border, you'll need to have a bead on every other band for the whole length of your bracelet, and the length suggestion is to go down 5 pins if you're doing a double length loom, and to stop there. So in that case, I think it brings it to about 10 beaded bands, which would be like 20 in total, plus your cap band. Okay, so I've already done my single chain with the beads, and they are every other band. But what I wanted to show you is, this is how I put my beads on my bracelet, and it works out a lot easier. So if you have the bead towards the farthest that you can towards the end, okay, so I just put on my band with no bead, and now it's time for my beaded band. So I want to take the part of the band that is the large hole, and I want to pull it through, and I don't want it to go past that bead, but I just want to close it. That helps you keep that bead to the right. Thus, whenever we put it on the loom, the beads are going to be on the outside. Okay? It's not a big hard thing to do. It's just a little bit opposite of what we normally do. So then you want to take your plain band, and it's a little bit tight through the first hole, so you want to thread it through both, close it up, and then again you would take the large hole of your beaded band and only take it to the bead and then close it up. if your band should happen to go past your bead, no biggie, you would just pull the band towards the center. So in essence, the center, it looks exactly like a single chain, except we put our bead to the right. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you. What we normally would do is we would have our bead in the center of the band. And how I typically teach adding beads to a single chain is to pull both loops through, make sure the right loop is over so the bead is in the center, and then close it up. So now you can see that's a traditional, and this is how we're doing it here, which is just taking that right band and not putting it over the bead. Okay? So if that is your plan to add a beaded border, I would go ahead and pause the tutorial and make them now. And that way you have them ready for whenever it's that step. And then whenever you're finished, if I can find it, you just want to add a C-clip, and then once it is on the loom, we can take our C-clip off. Okay? Alrighty. So one thing that MsLoom didn't do is add any more bling to the bracelet, but I thought maybe for the tutorial I'd like to try to add, we have somewhat of a single chain that goes up the center. I'm going to add these spacer beads. They're not too large of a hole, but they're a great size hole to get the biggest band that we have through, and they're like a rondelle, a rhinestone rondelle spacer. So if you choose to add, there's a lot of possibilities of bling. So as far as color, it is suggested that these center bands, there is a row of bands behind here. I guess what you'll see as I'm doing the tutorial, if you wanted to mesh colors with the bracelet. So this first step is we're going to add bands just to the front row, and then we're not going to add any more border. But the bands that I'm going to add are going to be what I have here in blue, and then I'm going to, okay, so that's going to be this color here. So I'm trying to make it where you guys are going to do your border color the way that you want, because it's not put on all together, if that makes sense. Okay, so that is how we're doing the first step of the bracelet. That's going to be this blue. Okay, so our next step is we're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bands on in a row. And so for color choice, the first band that we're putting on, as I mentioned, is this single chain. It's not very visible, but you could make it visible if you want to make it a highlight. So this is the one that I would like to put this beaded band on. Actually, I don't want to put the first one as a bead. I want to put the first one as a plain, but I am using the limited edition frost white or something of that nature. So we just simply put a band going forward. Now we want to take another color and put 2 bands coming out to make like a board, or to make a arrow. So I'm going to use the white. You can get them out of the yin yang pack or the metallic mixed, but they're a round band. Okay, and after we place, and the other thing is, it's very, very important that you place your bands the same way. So you see I placed the left one first, the right one second. I have to follow that pattern all the way up. Okay, so then our next color is I'm going back to that color that I'm using in the center chain, which is this off-white. So again, I always want to start on my left because that's just my preference, and then I want to do the right. Okay, so whichever band you placed first, continue placing it first the whole way up your loom. Okay. Okay, so basically we just have a band going forward and we just created an X. So we're just gonna continue that the whole way up. So first goes our forward band, and I'm going to make that a bling band. And then our second band is going to be the two bands that go down. So you want to starting on that left, taking that band down, going to the right, taking that band down. Okay, and then after that we want to go back to this center peg, and we want to place the band going up to the left and then up to the right. Okay, so we just made another X. And now we want to take our center color and go straight forward, and then back to placing the two bands diagonally down. And then our two bands that are going diagonally up. Okay, and then now for my sake it is bling band turn. And then again the two bands down and the two bands going up. Okay, that's what you should have, just a whole bunch of X's, just making sure that you place the bands in the correct order that I just showed you. And that is going to go excuse me, all the way up. So if you're doing one loom, you're going to take it all the way up. So right here is where my loom stops. So I want to take it all the way up to the second from the last peg down in the center, and then this one will conclude a band going straight forward. We always want to end with the band that goes forward. So since we are going with a full wrap, which is almost a loom and a half, this is our stop point. So you want to make sure that you count down 5 and then place something so you know where to stop. So if I'm stopping here, okay, I want to stop and add my last band, the one that's going forward, here. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll work on that, and then we'll meet back for the next step. All right, so once we have it up to the length that we want, actually I counted down 5 pin bars from the outside, which is a pin higher than the center, but because my bling band was the last band, I went up and did one more, which gives it 5 down from the center there. So we do the border exactly kind of like we did the beginning part. So we want to go from the last, take one in and take it in to the center like that, and then take your band in on this side, and again meeting in the center. Okay, so that's how we close it up. All right, so our next step is super easy. We're going to add single chains on the second and fourth pin bars going up. So this color is not going to be too visible. It is kind of, it's that pink behind all of your zigzag bands. Okay, but it's really hidden down in there. So you could really make it a contrast color, or you could mesh it in. What I'd like to do is, because I'm only using this like rusty looking color for the border, I'm going to use this color, and that way it might bring it out a little bit. So just super simple, 2 center chains, the second and fourth pin bar, all the way up until you meet the border that we just added. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish those up, and then we'll start our next step. All right, so we have just completed the center part of the bracelet, so we have just a couple more steps to complete the the borders. So the next band that we're going to place is going to be these pink bands I have here. And they're just simply X bands. And actually, I think these would be good bands to bling. So that's another option. So with this, I don't see that it would be hard to untwist bands. I don't think that the bands would get twisted. I'm just going to go with glitter white. Okay, but it's super important that you place the first band in this order, which is going from the outer last peg up diagonally to that peg there. Okay, and then your second band forms the X. So you always want to start from the right and go in with your X. And trust me, whenever instruction is given like that and I don't do it, it's every time I screw up some part of it. You can tell. So I try to make sure that I'm letting everybody know, do it this way, because trust me, you can tell when you look at your bracelet. Okay, so remember, you're always starting from the outer pin bar, placing that band in first. So you're going to do the same when it comes to this side here, starting from the outer pin bar and going up first, and then bring your second band out. So you're going in with your band, and then you're going out. So just simple X. And we're going to do that all the way up until we meet our border. Okay, so let's finish those up, and then we'll meet back and add, I'm thinking, what is our last step? Yep, it'll be our last step. Alrighty, so we have one more step, and that is to add our single chains to the first and last pin bars, or if you're adding beads, single chain. If you choose not to add beads and just do a regular border, so you're just going to place your bands going up on both sides, just like this, okay? But if you are choosing to use beads, we're going to do that single chain. So you have to have it ready by now. Again, it's a single chain with every other band being a bead. So we want to take the cap band, and we just want to open it up, and we want to place it on that first peg, okay? Now, here's the thing. When you put the cap band on that peg, it automatically lays your bracelet where the bling is facing forward or up. So we kind of want to twist this first plain band a little bit because we want that hole open, okay? So we want it let me place this one so like that, okay? So our goal is to get that bead on the outside of this pin. So you have to do every chain or link, so you have to pull on it, make sure that you get those ones there that are without a bead, and you're just opening up the center. And you can also use your hook to help put it on if it's easier. You just stick your hook down and we're just adding it. And the cool part about this is it is already loomed, so we are done with the first step of the looming process if you decide to add it like this. So just make sure it's all pushed down, and we'll do the same thing on this side. Start out with your cap band. See, the reason I say that is because this is how we're putting this chain on your pegs. You can't put the cap band on like that, you see? So you have to put the cap band on with your bead, with it facing forward, and then it's kind of like you have to do a half turn in order for it to go on correctly, for your beads to be on the outside. Okay, so as long as you have your bead facing the outside, put your hand, finger, or hook in it. And you get it started, and then you can always see that hole. Trying to keep my hands out of the way. And I'm trying to do this, I'm left-handed, so. Okay, it's exactly how we did the other side. So you just put them all on until you reach the end of that chain, and that chain should come out to the end. Okay, and so when you can actually put your last one on now in the beginning before you even put all your bands on if you'd like. Again, it's just like your cap band, so it's going to go on a little bit twisted than the other bands, but it should come up to the last of the design, and then you can go ahead and slip off your C-clip. And if you should happen to have one too many, you can just take it off, or if you need to add one, just most importantly is that you don't skip any of your links and that you're getting them 2 bands on each side of the peg. Okay? So we'll finish that up and we will start looping our bands after this. Alright, so our last band placement is cap bands, or triple cap bands. On the first, sorry, I have to reach around. So the first and the last pin bars, you want triple capped. Okay? So the first step of the looping is looping out the center or the single chains on the first and last pin bars. So if you did like I did and you put Bling on it and you already created that single chain and laid it down, that step is complete. It's already loomed out. If you just put your bands down, go ahead and pause the tutorial and loom out those 2 single chains all the way up into the last pin. But I am going to go ahead and move on with the next step. So the next step is to loom up these X bands on the first 2 pins and the last 2. Okay, so it's not tricky, but there's a way that we need to do this. So we need to go into this last pin here and grab the one on top first. Okay, and then we loom it back to itself. The next step that we do is we grab that border band. Excuse me, it's the last band on that peg. Carefully take it out and place it back to itself. Now we can go ahead and take this X band and loom it like that. Okay, so our goal is to always looming the top band first. So it will always be the only band left on the peg on the outer pin bar, and then when we come in to do this one, it will be the top band on the peg. Okay, pretty standard. Just always make sure that you are looming the band that's on top first. And you see the kind of shape it's giving you. Okay, so we want to do that all the way up until the end. And then we want to come over and do the same on this side. So again, let's see, I want to try to do this. I have to do it like this, I'm sorry. Okay, so we want to go into that cap band and grab the one on top, which is this band going over to this pin here. And then we want to go back into that same pin and grab that border band and bring it back to itself. Now we want to go in and grab this diagonal band and bring it back. Okay, so then again we just start with the band that goes on top and back to itself. Now, I can take it out a little bit. So as we're looming the bracelet, we are wrapping it up bandwise from the outside in. So again, the first pin bar and the last one, this should be the only band that you're pulling. If there happens to be another band on there, you have to make sure that you have it loomed up somehow so your bracelet doesn't fall apart. Okay, so let's do our X bands until we reach the end of the loom, and then we'll start our next step. Alright, so our next step is super simple. We are just going to loom up the single chains on the second and fourth pin bars. Okay, so you have that one band from the border that we pulled over on top as your cap band. So we're just reaching for that top band on that one. And then the same over here. And now on the rest of them, we have that white band looped. So we have to go underneath that and bring the band forward. So your X bands are underneath it. Okay, so same thing on this side. You can see there's a lot of tension on the outer pin bars, so it's stretching this one. So just be careful when you're pulling it off the pin. Okay, so let's loom those two center chains up, and then when we come back, the last step is to loom up the center, and it's one step we do all the bands in one step. So we'll meet back there. All right, so our next step is to secure up this border part here. So what we want to do is we want to go inside this pin and grab the border band, which is the band on top, and bring it back to itself in the center. And the same thing on this peg, back to itself. Okay, so the next way that we're going to loom these 3 bands here is going to be traditionally. So we want to do the band that's on top. So out of the band that's going straight up from the sides, the straight one is on top. So let's grab that, which is at the bottom band, and loom it straight forward. Now the next band that's on top out of those 3 is the one here on the left. So I want to grab that one next and loom it back to itself in the center. And then do the same thing on this side. Okay, so we have all of those bands traditionally loomed back to themselves. Alright, so I tried to zoom in because this step is just a tad bit different than we typically loom. So if you look at the center peg, we have 3 more bands that are attached to it. We have this band that's going out to the left. The next band we have is the band that's going up to the right, and then the last band we have is the one going forward. Okay, so I say that because in case you ever get lost on bands, which ones to loop, always do the ones that are on top. Okay, so traditionally what we would typically do is go inside the peg and grab that band and loom it back. But for this bracelet, you see we have this little hole, this little gap. We want to go in that gap and we want to grab that band from the outside of the pin. So it's just a little bit challenging because right on top of that band you have 2 more. Okay, so I got it now because it's easy tension. I'm looking, I see by moving it, it's that band. So once you have it through that gap, you want to take it up and over the pin and place it back to itself, which is in the center. Okay, that's how we're going to do all of the X bands until the end of the bracelet. And I'm sorry, I have to put this down because my loom's going to fall apart. Now you can maybe see why MsLoom suggests that we use stretchy bands, because it's quite a stretch over. So again, we want to go into the gap on the side there. So our next focus is this diagonal band here that's going from this pin to there. We want to go inside that gap and grab the band from the outside of the pin. And I want to make sure I have the right one, but it is the band that's on top. You have one band that's below it, and that's that band there, so I need to grab the one on top. So you can go inside, you can go on the pin here and grab it. You just can't go inside the pin and bring it up through. Alright, so I know I have the right band because I'm stretching it and I see it's stretching. So I'm just going to take it up and over and back to itself. So it's just like we're looming a single, like a fishtail or a monster tail bracelet. Everything we loom is always up and over. That's how we're going to loom all of our X bands from here on out. So now that we did the 2 diagonal bands, now it's time to do that band going forward, because it is the next one in line. So you have a lot of bands on that pin. You want to make sure that you can get that last band, and it's really tight, so you want to take it and pull it back towards you to get some of that band elasticity. Then when you pull it up and over the peg, it's not, it took a lot of that tension off of it and it created the teardrop. Okay, that's the sequence. So once we placed the band going forward, then you have the all 4 X bands to do. So again, we just want to make sure that we start with the X band that is on top. So it is this one here. So I want to go inside this gap and grab that band. So as you can see, as I'm stretching it, I know it's the right one, and then I'm just going to take it up and over and place it back to itself in the center. And then I want to do the next band on top, which is this band here, diagonally down. So I want to make sure I get it from the outside of the peg. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm stretching, I know it's the right one. I'm taking it up and over and placing it back to itself. Okay, so the next band in line is this diagonal band that's going from this peg to the center. So again, I want to go in this gap. I want to get down in and make sure I'm grabbing the right band, because on this particular step, it's the first band, it's not the last band. So once you have it, bring it back to itself. And then we want to do the same thing on this peg here. So you go into that gap, and it is the one on top. You see as I'm stretching it, and then I want to pull it back to itself. Okay? So that's kind of what you should have. It's just a wider teardrop, if you will, because it's all over the pins. But it is extremely important that you're grabbing the band that's on top. So if you accidentally put, out of your X band, say you accidentally put this band going from this peg to this peg on top, and then this band is next. It's okay. Just make sure that you're looming it, you know, in order. So our next band loop is just that bottom band. We want to be super careful because we have a zillion bands on top. So to relieve some of that tension, we want to take it and stretch it out, and then we take it up and over the peg and back to itself. Okay? So now we start the sequence all over again with this band being the one on top. Go into this gap over here. Now on this part of this step of the sequence, it's the only band left on the peg, so it's easy to find. It's up and over, and then down here, up and over. Okay, make sure your center's pressed down, and now we want to focus on like that V that's shaped as. So this one, you have 2 bands, so you want to grab that top one, make sure you're grabbing the right one, and bring it up and over, and then again doing the same on this side, up and over, and then completing it by grabbing the bottom band, giving it a little pull, and then up and over back to itself. Okay? I'm going to do it maybe 2 more times, a little bit faster, and I think you guys should be okay. Just notice every time I'm grabbing a band, I'm stretching it out and then placing it. especially that one, because I don't want it to break. And if you have a lot of tension on your band, don't force it forward. Just stick your hook in and just go like this, where you're kind of pushing out the bands, and it will automatically relieve the tension for you. Okay. Alrighty, I think you guys got it. Okay, that's what your looms should look like. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up to the end, and we'll meet back to close it up. I hope I caught you before you loomed the last two. I forgot to mention this band going. We loom those out back to themselves, like we did in the beginning. So we want to go into this middle pin and grab the first band on top. And that isn't it. Let me circle it. It should be this. Yeah, it was just a little crooked. So we want to take it in traditional looming and loom it to the outside. And then the next band in line is going to go to the right. And then the final band will be the one going straight forward. Okay? And so after this, we're just going to loom up our border. So I'm going to start in the left, grab that band, bring it in, and then the next band to the center. And then we come in this and do the same. Alrighty, we are now complete, excuse me, with our bracelet. So you want to make sure that your loom is looking like this, and most importantly, see that is insane. There's a little bit of tension on my loom. If we take it on its side, you see there are no bands all the way through. I can see to the other side. If you can do that, you know you've picked up every band. It's not going to fall apart. So I'm just going to put my hook in and add the border color. Stick that in. And I'm going to just go ahead and add my C-clip. And you want to take this off pin by pin, especially the outside pegs. It has a lot of tension on it. Okay, so after you get the outside, I'm still going to go ahead and pull this off with my hook because the center row has a ton of the bands on it. So let's go ahead and take it off of our loom, and then we can meet back here and show off our fabulous result. All right, here is my finished bracelet. It's pretty much perfect off of the loom. Super love that I don't have to do anything with the border bands. We always have to move that bling in the center if you did add any bling. I love it, and I'm actually pretty happy with how my center bling came out. Definitely not needed even on the outside. Suggestion is to add a triple or cap band instead of bling. So we want to say thank you to MsLoom again for a great design. Again, this is from MsLoom. Make sure that you hashtag your renditions on Instagram. We'd love to see what colors you use and know your thoughts. So thanks for joining me, and stay tuned. I have a lot more coming. Bye-bye.